Hey everyone, thanks so much for attending. This is going to be a pretty fun, very chill session. We're a good, small, intimate group as well. So feel free, by the way, throughout the session to just interrupt me and say, hey, Swish, did not hear that. You were speaking way too quickly, which I sometimes do. Or, hey, Swish, I have a question, and just ask your question. I don't want to wait till the very end to do Q&A. I think it's just best if you have a question that pops up into your head, ask it into the chat or ask it by coming off mute and interrupting me, and that's not a problem at all. What I'll do is I'm going to share my screen really quickly, and I will give you a bit of a background on me and Trufan, and then I'll get right into a little bit of a spiel, very much talking around sales, marketing, fundraising, and HR and culture, how COVID has affected each one of those, some things to keep in mind, and some things also to be excited about in terms of opportunities that have come despite obviously the pandemic and some of the economic impacts that it's made so far. So Trufan, we started the company about 2.5 years ago. Currently 23. I did a bit of work before Trufan, building up a social media account called @Dunk, @DUNK on Instagram. We grew to about 2.3 million followers. We had about 21 other accounts that totaled up to about 11 million followers on Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. And we worked with brands like Warner Music, Gatorade, Sony Music to promote their content on our Instagram or Twitter pages, because our audience were the 18 to 24-year-old demographic that were not watching TV to get their sports highlights. They were watching our social media videos that were talking about highlights, memes, videos, funny videos, etc. So that's honestly how I came up with Trufan. My experience building out Dunk gave me a really good insight into influencer marketing and some of the problems with influencer marketing. So we started the company Trufan 2.5 years ago to help any brand engage their top fans. 2.5 years later now, where we're at right now, we're a team of 20. We acquired a company out of New York last November called SocialRank. So we've become the world's leading audience analytics platform that helps any brand make smarter marketing decisions using data. So you can identify your most valuable followers on Instagram and Twitter. You can go through and identify your competitors' top fans. You can compare your competitors' audience to your audience and find overlap. And you can also go through over 2 billion social profiles that we have on our system to find new influencers to work with. So this kind of goes over some of the detailed product features. I'm not going to bore you guys with all of this. I actually just used kind of this webinar deck for a webinar that I did 2 weeks ago. And the first question that I was asked is, what is Trufan? And I didn't have the answer. So I just wanted to quickly give you guys a very clear outlook into what is Trufan. If you are interested, you can definitely check our website out, trufan.io. So that's everything on the promo and plugging side, if you will. Now getting into the real value of the talk. My high level thoughts are going to start off more general, and then I'm going to go a little more condensed into specifically how COVID has affected sales and marketing, how it's affected fundraising, and how it's affecting hiring and culture. Before I begin, any kind of preliminary questions from anyone, or are we good? Cool. Okay. So moving right into kind of the high level thoughts, I think if you are an entrepreneur, you probably know that during the pandemic, there were a lot of companies that did not survive. There were a lot of companies that went through the last couple of months. They didn't realize that they had a market that they could market to anymore. They didn't realize that, hey, we don't have a business model that's conducive for a global health pandemic. And a lot of companies either had to fold or they had to pivot very quickly. I think overarching on a high level, you need to be either a company during this time that helps businesses save money or make money. That's really the two buckets that you're going to fall into. You're either going to help a company save money or make money. And those, in my opinion, are the businesses that are going to do well during this time and are going to continue to do well. So that's definitely something that we had to dial into on Trufan's side. Like before, the pandemic, before April, March, we were only enterprise oriented. So our software, we sold it mainly to companies like Netflix, P&G, Wunderman Thompson, the NBA, the NFL, all for over $1,000 a month, all the way to $5,000 a month. We had to really quickly analyze and say, hey, wait, during the pandemic, enterprise sales are likely going to be put on hold because a lot of people who are point of contacts at agencies or companies might get fired. They might be moved around. And a lot of them wouldn't even know what their budget is for the next few months because companies are preparing for the pandemic, not thinking about it ending in 3 months, but they really don't know when it's going to end. So they're going to have to put in contingency plans that are going to affect their budget, which is why we decided to then put out our transactional pricing plans. and why we also decided to release a free plan of our product. So now our transactional plans are from anywhere between $24 a month to $199 a month. And our free plan, obviously being free forever, is a great way to start to get a new audience that we never tapped into before. Number two, on a high level, if you do have money to spend on ads, I would do it, especially on Facebook and Instagram. CPMs are still low. They obviously were at an all-time low around April and May, but they're still low. And so if you do have money and you are looking to seize market share during this time, the number one thing I would do as a test is to put in $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 into ads, especially if you already have ad sets built up on Facebook Ad Manager. Make sure to continue to run these ads and see how your performance is going during this time. Again, social media consumption is at an all-time high. So people watching ads never being more important, never being even higher than now. The third kind of high-level thought is around remote work. Obviously, right now, most of us, if not all, are working remotely. And so for Trufan, for example, we've decided to work remotely until January of 2021. And honestly, between us, I do think that we might even work remotely past that date, because we've seen that our level of productivity as a team has not actually changed. If anything, we've been more productive working from home because of how flexible hours can be, how flexible your workspace, your environment can be, how happy you tend to feel when you work out of home. And also, we've noticed that there are a lot of ways that remote work has actually been a great way to save money on, right? Like, we haven't had to pay for office space during this time, which has allowed us to stay really lean during this time. So I do think that largely, and this is obviously going to affect bigger companies as well, remote work is going to be seen in a very different way going forward. There are going to be companies that now look at their sales and marketing department and they say, probably not worth having them in the office. What if we were able to hire them from home? And that has a lot of pros and cons, obviously. Remote work, it's not just all positives, it's not just all roses, but the pros on a business side is it does help you save money on things like office space. And more importantly, it does allow you to hire now from outside of your immediate area. So you could look into hiring people from Vancouver. You could look into hiring people even outside of North America, because as long as you have the right processes built out on your team and how you communicate with one another and get work done, you should be able to bring that person in and make them productive. The final kind of high level thought is obviously now is the right time to continue to stay lean. So something I do every 2 weeks is I reassess our entire budget every 2 weeks. It used to be something that I did once a month. And last year was something that I did once a quarter, is take a look at our budget and figure out, do we really need these specific costs or can we do without them? And that's something that we do now every 2 weeks. So we're looking at every single aspect of our budget, including the tools that we're buying, people that we've obviously hired, our travel budget, our rent, places that we're paying for that we don't need anymore. These are the types of things that I would reassess every 2 weeks to make sure that you're on the ball about making adjustments as changes occur, because they are happening in real time, right? Cities are opening up in real time, opportunities are coming out in real time, and it's worth just being on the ball with that. So those are kind of 4 high level thoughts. In terms of sales and marketing specifically, and before I kind of get into that, does anyone have any questions, by the way? Any preguntas? Oh, in the chat, yep. Will we get a recording? I believe you will get a recording, by the way. Viraj, I think Venture Cafe, you guys did. Yeah, they did the recording, obviously. So yeah, I think you guys will. But in terms of going through sales and marketing specifically, I do think there's 3 big thoughts here in terms of how the pandemic has affected sales and marketing and things to keep in mind. Number 1 is obviously free access to your product or cheaper price points is probably the best thing you can do right now. So again, going back like at the start of April, we actually didn't even know that we should release transactional plans, but we did, starting at $24 a month. In terms of just giving our free plan away, we didn't even start off with a free plan. We just gave away 45 days free access to any small business under 25,000 followers. So if you're under 25,000 followers as a small business, we had over 2,000 SMBs sign up for 45-day free access to our platform. And that made us think, maybe a free plan could be something that would work and do well and people would want. So the number 1 thing on the sales and marketing side, and by the way, we're not out of the bushes yet. Like I do believe that a second wave is likely to happen. You've seen obviously cases within Texas, within Florida, where a second wave hit hard. And I feel like the way that we're opening things up right now in Toronto, in Vancouver, in Calgary, we're doing a good job, but it's obviously not immune in any way to changes that are going to happen in the next few months, to flu season coming up at the end of September and the start of October, and seeing how flu season might lead to more people being sick, immune systems being down, COVID potentially being more transferable. So I would make sure that as much as possible, you're not thinking that this whole situation is going to end in 2, 3, 4 months. At least the economic consequences too are not going to end in the next few months. It's going to be years, I feel, before we go back to normal, whatever that actually means. The second big thing is to throw virtual events. This is actually great on the marketing side. So Zoom, for example, right? Like, all it really takes to host a virtual event, in my opinion, is paying for that Zoom Pro membership, and that's it. Because find a topic, ideally, that your business does really well in, or your business is focused on as a niche. Find speakers that are great within that niche. You can do that over LinkedIn, you can do that over Instagram, and try throwing a virtual event every single month. That's something we did again in April. Our first event had literally 23 people. Our second event that had 80 people. Last month, we had about 140 people. And this month coming up, we have about 117 people signed up so far for our event on July 28th. And we call this whole event series Navigating the Unknown. We focus it on marketing and sales. But like, that's something, again, we're doing it at no cost. We're doing it every single month. We're trying to engage our community. We're trying to engage our network of investors, advisors, clients, bringing them in as speakers and having them speak to an audience that can start to know about us, but through the virtual world and through Zoom. And again, this is happening at no cost, right? So that's the benefit, I think, of having a virtual event versus even doing a physical event, because you're not paying for anything else. So that's another piece of advice I think is really important on the sales and marketing side, is look for virtual events as a big part of your marketing strategy. Doesn't take a lot of time to set up. It's pretty straightforward to set up on Zoom. And it's a great way, again, I think, to engage your community, try to get people that are interested in your subject area or topic out to be a part of that event. The third and kind of final advice on the sales and marketing side, I think, would be empathy and patience. And this is something we spoke very highly to our customer success team in April and May about, but this time is obviously very difficult for you as an entrepreneur, you as a small business owner, you as an employee. It's equally as problematic and difficult for your customers. So it's worth noting that wherever you can be patient, wherever you can offer refunds and discounts, wherever you can take an extra step to help a customer along the way in terms of using your product, getting to the use case they want to get to, the better it is for your brand in the long run. So I think this time is very crucial to understand where your customers are coming from, what's best for them. It also, I think, very much will correlate to the tone of your marketing. In my opinion, your marketing, whenever, even if you're marketing a virtual event, should not be very pushy. It shouldn't be like, sign up for our platform now. A lot of what you should be doing is trying to give away tidbits of knowledge for free, giving away free content through, like, example, the virtual event we do is still free. We don't charge people for that virtual event, but we're sharing advice and we're syndicating that content into little pieces of micro content, 2 to 3 minute clips, and sharing it on LinkedIn, sharing it on Instagram, and trying to get people to sign up for our next event. So again, try not to be as pushy, I think, during this time, be more responsive, but really, like, within your sales and marketing team, practice empathy and patience, because you might have it tough, but I can guarantee your customers do as well. And it's just worth noting that, like, during this time, if you want to come out of it with great brand loyalty, you want to be as supportive as you can about your customers and making sure that you're looking out for their best interest first. Fundraising, going into that kind of second big pillar. I think on the fundraising side, I don't know how many companies here are fundraising. If you are, feel free to let me know after, and I can answer any specific questions around that. But I think that now obviously isn't the best time, the most ideal time to raise money from VCs. From some of the stories that I've heard, from companies that are raising from VCs, from some of the VCs that have invested in us, and just talking to them, a lot of VCs, I think, are in, like, battle hardened mode, where it's very tough to raise on good terms. They're raising on really difficult terms because they're obviously trying to get as much equity into an early stage investment as they can, because of how unpredictable these times truly are and how hard it is to forecast revenue, how hard it is to forecast costs and externalities right now. So what I think you should look at is alternatives. Angel investors front and center. I think there are a lot of angel investors right now that are still looking to take money out of the public market and put it into private. And so I think going out and reaching out to lists like AngelList, attending events like Tech Toronto. I know they have a really good fundraising panel that they do every month. Venture Cafe, I think, is fantastic as well, and potentially going through their network, going on LinkedIn, searching up people that have the word investor in Toronto. These are the people that you should reach out to, start to get on virtual coffees with, talk to because you're likely to get more favorable terms from them. The second thing is looking at non-dilutive capital. I obviously know the government gives out a $40,000 loan, 10K of which is forgivable. There is obviously, I believe, a standard that you have to hit, but if you are making revenue as a business right now, I think over 10K MRR, monthly recurring revenue, you should be eligible for that. If you're an early stage company, you should look at Futurepreneur, Futurepreneur. I can spell, amazing. Futurepreneur has a $60,000 loan that they give to companies, and these are early stage companies that are within their first year of business. So you should look at that. Clearbank obviously is really big, and they've been blowing up recently, but Clearbank also just released a product a few days ago where they allow you to see your valuation. So especially if you're doing online sales and you're an e-commerce company, direct-to-consumer company, you probably want to integrate with Clearbank because it's a great way to raise money, but it's also a great way to know, like, where's my valuation at right now? What should I be asking? And then finally, BDC, right? So the Bank Development of Canada, I think it's worth noting that BDC has a number of great programs where they can write you a check between 0 to $1 million for early stage companies. And they can also extend a line of credit for companies that are looking for more than $1 million to $10 million. So these are options that exist out there that I would definitely seek out. Even if you're early right now, even if you're not ready for that type of capital, reach out, start building contacts there, because you might need it within 4, 5, 6, 7 months, and you don't want to be on the backtrack having to look for these intros and set up relationships with people. So that's my thoughts on the fundraising side. Before I go into the final aspect of hiring and culture, any questions? Any questions from anyone so far on fundraising, sales, marketing, anything like that? No, so far? Okay, cool. Lovely. The final aspect that I'll talk about is hiring and culture. So COVID began March. We went from a team of 13 to now where we're at in terms of being a team of 20. So we have been actively hiring during this time. I think the biggest thing that I've learned in terms of culture during this time and working virtually and online is that over communication is key. Especially with your team, especially with your clients and investors, there is no such thing as over communicating and that being a bad thing. So for me, like some of our key investors, I literally text them every single week, giving them an update of how the week went. With my team members, I make sure that not only am I signing things via text, but I'm also doing it via video, where I record a quick 1-minute video and send it to them, telling them about something they should pay attention to, or something that I'm waiting from, or giving them an update on how my side is going in terms of hiring, fundraising, etc. So keep your team as informed as you can as possible during this time, and try to encourage that level of communication. Try to encourage the level of communication of like simplify things for people, but feel free to over explain certain things, because during this time, it's very hard sometimes to really gauge body language. It's really hard, for example, to gauge what people really want. So you want people to explain and keep each other informed as much as possible. The second aspect is checking in with your team monthly. If possible, actually do it weekly. I currently do our check-ins every month. And we do these check-ins monthly because it's a great way of just getting to know how are your employees doing, past like what their role is and whether they're happy working for you. It's also good just checking in to like, what's their situation? Like one of our employees last month told us that they were waiting on IKEA for their bed delivery. And for the last 3 weeks, they've been sleeping on their couch, right? And like, this is stuff that's good to know, because a big part of my job over the last 2 weeks then was literally calling IKEA on their behalf and making sure they get their delivery. And like, I wasn't able to do it. I still was put on hold, and, just, I hate IKEA now, but at the same time, like at least showing your employees that, hey, like I actually care about your situation past your role at my company, and I'm looking out for your best interest during this time, is something that's really important to do right now. So if you can do it monthly, do it monthly. If you can do it weekly, that would be even better. And then one thing we do every 3 weeks, which I think is pretty new, is we throw something called a paranoia session on. So the paranoia session happens every 3 weeks. Our entire team will come on Zoom, and we'll essentially chat about doubts that we have, things that we're doubtful about in terms of where the company is going, maybe a bad customer experience that we had, maybe just we're unsure about product direction and where things are going on that front. We basically empower every single employee and intern on our team to speak on an equal level about challenges or doubts that they have about the company. And it's a 30-minute session. And normally what we see is that 10 to 15 minutes is spent on like people sharing doubts that they have, problems that they've encountered. But the other 10 to 15 minutes is devoted towards like properly troubleshooting these issues and thinking of possible solutions. And obviously, like, you're not going to come up with solutions for all the problems that are talked about in that session, but as a CEO or as a founder or as a supervisor or a manager, it is really important, I think, to know the very honest, raw truth about where you need to focus your time on as a leader and what is not working or what is not clear to your employees. And that's something that we are able to get through those hopes and fears and paranoia sessions. So it's something that I would do. Again, it's pretty easy to set up now because everything is virtual, but we do that every 3 months, every 3 weeks, and we see a great benefit from doing it. So those are kind of all my thoughts. I know I might have just breezed right through these, but I have kind of high level thoughts written down as well. I'll make sure I send it out to Venture Cafe. They'll send it over hopefully to you guys as like a summary of what I chatted about. But if anyone has any questions, happy to answer anything right now.